little background noise from somebody? Not sure. So nobody actually, yeah, most people are muted. Okay, so we have 23 people, but I'm expecting probably a little bit more, getting to around 30. And it's 8:02, so I think we're already starting to record, so we'll go ahead and start. As you can see, we have kind of a full agenda today. So let's just get straight into it. Is there anybody from the foundation that can give update on the summit that's upcoming in Europe? If you haven't registered, obviously, go ahead and register.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Max, it's Chip. How you doing?
All right. Hey, man. Go ahead.
How's everybody? All right. So, European Summit's coming up. Don't forget to register. If you're a contributor, you should have seen the code on the dev list already. Feel free to register. We have a pretty awesome agenda. If you haven't checked it out, take a look. All kinds of really fun talks about the existing CF projects, some of the direction of the projects. As always, I expect it to be great. Registration numbers look pretty good, so it will cap out at some point. Be sure to get registered if you haven't. Let's see. So there was a member survey that was fielded. It looks like some of these notes in here are from the past. That's already done. OSCON's over. We did sign up with the Call for Code program that IBM's running. We're still working out some logistics about how we're going to support that, maybe a virtual hackathon. If you haven't looked at the Call for Code, I think it's a really amazing initiative. Thanks to the folks from IBM that are on for their company spearheading that. I think it's really neat. Let's see, and I think those are probably the major updates.
Yeah.
So
cool.
As always, you can find us on Slack. So I won't take up too much time because there are demos to get to. Any questions?
Okay, I don't hear any questions. Thank you, Chip. I'll second that call for code. I had added that on the agenda. Check it out. I mean, it's like as a person that lived through a pretty bad disaster in 2010 in my home country of Haiti, I had done something like this where I tried to build apps to help people, and I had a recent discussion about this. And if we had the stuff that we have for Call for Code, then obviously things that happened in Puerto Rico last year, and obviously different parts of the world, in Japan, other places, help. So if you want to put your coding skills to something that is bigger than yourself and bigger than your organization, that's an opportunity. So check it out. Okay, so that's all I have to say. I think, Chip, what about the member survey? I think Swarna had mentioned it a few times. Is it still live, or are we done with this? I'm sorry, I should have asked.
We're done. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I hit that really fast because the survey closed out. We got good responses. It was sent specifically to what are called the primary contacts for each one of the member companies of the foundation. I think Swarna maybe mentioned it, but it's the way that we look at how we're supporting all of you, the community, the marketing needs of the organizations involved, the various technical groups. So it gets us a good gauge on how we should adjust. Just like many of you in your project teams and within your companies, you do a lot of iteration. We try to do the same thing with the way that we support you. So that's part of our feedback loop that we get.
Sweet. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So as you heard, ping Chip or anybody in the foundation if you have other questions. All right. So we'll get to I guess the other part of the program, which is sort of overview of the different PMCs. So kind of highlights anything important. Obviously, if there's a talk related to it, then there's no need to mention it. But if you want to mention something else, and Yui actually moved to become the sort of PMC lead for the entire PMCs. So I guess she gets off this list here, and then you get at it, or is it not yet? Anyway,
hasn't been any discussion of that. So.
Okay. Well, Eric is here, and Eric usually gives the update for Yui. So I guess Eric. you can tell us any highlights?
Yeah, sure. So a few highlights from the runtime PMC. Cappy is continuing to make progress on rolling app updates for more native zero downtime app roll. So I think they're close to the point where they're ready for more public beta on that. They're working with the CLI team about what that's going to look like in terms of integration there. I think even all the API endpoints might be there at this point. So if you enable their new component that does that and start moving droplets around, then you can start playing around with that. Garden's also started work on their efforts to improve some of the CPU controls inside of CF. So we're on the Diego team working with them to start integrating that. I know the container networking team is also making progress on their track work around dynamic egress rules, so making those application security groups more dynamic, both in terms of updating them on running instances and tying them to DNS names instead of just raw IP addresses. And then there's a bunch of integration work that's been going on. The BuildPacks team is working on getting the Ubuntu Bionic-based CF Linux FS3 out and getting the BuildPacks compatible with that. And then working with release integration and other teams like Happy and Diego to get that integrated into CF deployment. So that's all ready to go, and we're giving people enough lead time before Trusty comes out of support in April of next year. And similarly, we're integrating against the Xenial stem cells that the Bosch team has been producing. So yeah.
Cool.
Then also we're increasingly integrating the BPM project across all of the runtime Bosch releases. So in the long term, that'll give better isolation between jobs, somewhat simpler operator experience, simpler release author experience in terms of having less complexity in bash scripts. So hopefully some security benefits there from simplifications and isolation as well.
Sweet. Thank you, Eric. If you have a question, it's the time now. No? For Eric?
Hey, I'll add something though, just because you mentioned BuildPacks, Eric. For those of you that have been paying attention to stuff going on in CNCF, you'll note that the effort to kind of unfork the Heroku and Cloud Foundry BuildPack approach is going to be presented to the CNCF talk as a way to try to move that unforking process forward. That's going to happen, I think, next Wednesday, or no, I'm sorry, Tuesday morning US time. So that's kind of cool. So if you're paying attention to CNCF, you'll start seeing that show up, and you'll see the debate start to occur as to whether or not it makes sense to house that there as a common home.
Cool, cool. We got Steven Levine on it. I'm waiting for him. I love this guy, man. It's great. All right. So we move on to now Bosch, and it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Fred, who's, I guess, a new PM for Bosch, or one of the PMs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So nice to meet you all. So essentially, we've had a PM transition at Pivotal for Bosch. And since Dimitri is on the call, I would like to thank him for all his contributions over the year. He's done a great job, and we try to do as well.
You're trying to keep up with him?
Yeah.
I try it every day too.
Yeah. Well, that's why we've got two PMs for Bosch now. I mean, nobody can keep up with him. So essentially, I'm the Bosch PM for Toronto, the Toronto part of the team, and we've got Morgan Fine, not sure if he's on the call, who is our new San Francisco PM. And we've got a new PMC lead as well, Marco from SAP. So Marco, are you there?
Might be late for him. So.
Yeah. So wasn't sure. We didn't coordinate in advance.
Yeah.
In any case, so Marco has accepted to take on the role and sent out an email recently highlighting some changes that we want to make to our PMC. So essentially having separate projects with separate leads for the SF and Toronto teams is one of them. And we'll try to rejiggle a bit our projects for around CPIs as well, because we have some of them incubating, some of them official, so we need to make things clearer to reflect the fact that we've got, well, some of them are quite stable now, so we'll probably have them to upgrade it to full-blown projects at some point. in the future. As far as product direction go, we are still trying to solidify our 3 month, 6 month, 9 month roadmap, and we'll communicate with the at some point to make it clear. But you shouldn't expect too many big changes. I mean, obviously, we won't set the world on fire, at least initially, with whatever bright ideas we have. Yes. So continuity is a key, obviously, for us, and transparency, another one. Also, we've got some amount of debt as far as GitHub and PRs are concerned, and Morgan and I are keen on, paying off that debt and be more not reactive, because that's what we've been doing, but proactive in addressing them in the future. So look forward to maybe communications from us if you submitted issues and PRs, and from us or one member of the team, because we want to dedicate some engineering time to that. Apart from that, obviously, we've had quite a few releases in the last few weeks, mostly addressing some issues around links and variables, stuff like that. But also new features got in, like VM hot swap, that will enable you essentially to create a new VM and then delete the old one, instead of delete and then wait for the new one to be there. So this should help with upgrades and scenarios like that, and many other things. But I mean, that's all in the more detailed release notes that we are putting off now. So if you have a look, for example, at the release notes for 267.2 and up, you will see that we put much more detail into what got in for fixes, improvements, and stuff like that. So obviously looking forward for feedback from everybody in the community about how we are doing up to now. And I will be at Summit, so if you have any Bosch concerns, obviously I will be more than happy, and Morgan will be there too. And if you travel to Spring One as well, I will be there in Washington. So looking forward to meet with people from the community at around.
Sweet. Thank you, Fred. All right.
Also, I'm just going to keep interjecting additional things. So the project that was proposed by SUSE, which I think the proposal document talks about containerizing CF, but it's the Fizzle code base that takes a Bosch release manifest and turns it into an image, has been accepted for incubation as of, I think, either yesterday, I believe, or early this morning.
Excellent. Thank you, Chip. Any quick questions for Fred, or I guess additional things related to Bosch?
So that basically means that Fissile will be officially supported-ish, right?
It means that it's an incubating project, right? So it becomes a Cloud Foundry Foundation project. And then I think the work of that team is to figure out how it integrates with the rest of the Bosch efforts. So think of it as a start to that process.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Chip. Let's move on to Open Service Broker API. I think I saw Doug there. Doug, do you want to mention any updates?
Actually, we have nothing new to present. Actually, I guess I should take that. I think we did do a release fairly recently at 2.14, I believe.
Okay.
The release is out there. To be honest, I can't remember what the biggest feature was. It's been a while since we talked about it. But I don't think there's anything really major to bring up at this point.
Okay, cool. We can let people know to go to the link for it. All right, so on extensions, there's quite a bit, but I'll put a link to the latest PMC updates, but basically all the different projects are moving along. I think things to highlight are the App Autoscaler is adding a UI. So look for that soon. If you are a user of that App Autoscaler, I would say talk to Ping Bo Yang or go to their Slack channel. The BBR added sort of like improvements like blob store, backup impact, reducing that, as well as supporting more external blob stores. The Bacchus project, they are going through some kind of like figuring out what's going on for version 2, which is a re-implementation in Go. So if you're interested in that, look for some kind of an inception on this soon. You got an update for Service Fabric last time. And then, as I mentioned, Stephen Levine from Pivotal is kicking ass, all kinds of stuff around CF Dev and local. You should check it out. If you haven't looked at those projects, I think they make the experience in Cloud Foundry a lot easier. And then, of course, the Stratos project, probably the highlight of extensions, is sort of just giving everybody a chance to sort of build Cloud Foundry offerings. I know for a fact that IBM we're using it, so check it out. And then Blockhead, you will hear more at Summit. So that's it for extensions. I'll put a link to the updates so you can see things. So I won't take any more questions right now because we got to move to the two talks. Very exciting, very important talks. First, we'll start with Pivotal. This is an update. So to be clear, Shannon is one of, I guess, the PM leading all this. I pinged him, he couldn't be there. So we have Shubha, who's I guess, a technical lead in there. So she's gonna give us an update on what's going on there related to Istio and Envoy on Edge routing. So Shubha, if you wanna share your screen.
Yeah, I also want to clarify that I'm not the technical lead. I'm one of the co-PMs on routing.
Oh, okay, sorry. My bad. Well, he's still a lead, right?
So yeah, I'll try my best to answer all your technical questions, but don't take it to the bank. But yeah, so I am sharing my screen. I'm not hoping to get into presentation mode because I can't see all of you if I do that. So I don't have we have basic HTTP routing set up with Istio right now, so my demo is not going to be as exciting as I would like it to be, but I hope that this sets the stage for future demos from our team and gives you a little bit of a background on what our team is working on and where we are right now. To step through, there are motivations for using Istio and Cloud Foundry. And especially within the routing team, we believe that this will help us deliver value to our users faster. Over the years, the routing team has a long list of features that our customers have requested us for, and we've been successful in delivering these in an iterative way. But we believe that Istio and Envoy being fairly feature-rich will actually help us deliver those features faster. And we actually shared out a proposal in the beginning of the year, and I have a link to this in the presentation. I'll share it out later, which details out our motivations and assumptions and all of that. So that will give you a better idea of what and why we wanted to do this, other than just features. I think it also helps us think about a lot of runtime teams have been thinking about how we can provide shared services between CFCR and CFAR, and we hope this is probably one way we can do that. It also helps us simplify the Cloud Foundry routing architecture, and I'll go into that in more detail as to how it does that. So in terms of how the Cloud Foundry routing data plane works today, this is a very simple illustration of it. You typically have a load balancer, the Go router for HTTP routing, and an app, and the Go route and the domain for the Go router is at the load balancer. We have a parallel routing plane for TCP routing, which is load balancer, the TCP router, and app, and you have a domain for the TCP router. So this is how it works today. How we have set it up in our test environments is that we have sort of this parallel routing plane that uses Envoy as for edge routing, and we have another domain mapped to the Envoy in front of the we have another domain mapped to the load balancer in front of the Envoy. So if you look at my screen to the right now, you can see that I already have a deployment running, and you can see that we have, in addition to all the VMs, we have these 3 VMs, the Istio control VM, the Istio router VMs. The Istio router VMs are basically the Envoy VMs, and the Istio control VM has pilot and copilot. We also have something called the CC route syncer, which is a bulk syncing job, helps sync routes between CC and copilot, and I'll go into that the next slide. So that's how it looks like in practice. and that's how we've set it up. And we're hoping that, for experimental purposes, that this would help us until we get to feature parity in Envoy. This will help us test and get new features out to customers and users. So this is how the CF routing control plane looks like today. We have the route emitter gets routes from the cloud controller to Diego BBS to the route emitter, and this is not completely efficient in that Diego actually passes on information and really doesn't have to know. These routes get to the NATs, and the Go router gets those routes from the NATs, and this is basically for HTTP routing. For TCP routing, there's the routing API and the TCP router. So we have two routers right now, one for HTTP routing and one for TCP routing. The TCP router is HA proxy behind the hood, but it's not, it basically, we have two routing planes right now for two protocols. So this is how it would look like with Istio and Envoy. So we have simplified this by Copilot, which is an adapter we've written that talks to Istio Pilot. And Copilot interacts with both Cloud Controller and Diego to get the information it needs. And eventually we can also eliminate route emitter. We already can remove NATs and routing API. This also means that we have only one router. So Envoy already supports HTTP and TCP, and there are plans to support UDP, but it's not in there yet. So this does help us in having just one router instead of two routers. And it cleans up the orchestration layer by basically Copilot syncing with CC and Diego directly. So that basically is how we've implemented it right now. I won't go into the implementation details here, but because I want to go through a demo. But up until now, we've contributed back to the Istio community in terms of the Istio gateway work. We were the first ones to get to want to use Envoy as a ingress gateway, and using Istio for it. So we contributed that work back to the Istio community. We have basic HTTP routing set up through Envoy, and I'll walk through that. We also have the Cloud Foundry end-to-end tests and pilot as part of their pipeline. So if there is something that commit to pilot that breaks our integration, we actually can catch it before it impacts us, and have there is more visibility into it for us. We are also contributing something called the mesh config protocol, which basically, if you look at this interaction between Copilot and Istio Pilot, it provides standard interfaces for Copilot and Copilot or any other adapter, right? Not just a Cloud Foundry adapter, to interact with Pilot. And in the long run, this will actually help us move faster because it moves some of the code that we have in Pilot today into Copilot. And also in terms of future integrations, we don't have to make PRs to Pilot. We can just make changes to Copilot. And that standard interface helps us in interacting with Pilot. So we are contributing that work back into the Istio community. We are focused on scaling of the control plane, and we are, I think, one of the few teams which are actually testing the control plane as opposed to the data plane. I think the Istio community has done a lot of work in terms of testing Envoy and Mixer for as data plane components for latency and throughput, but there's not a lot of teams that are testing the control plane. So we've been testing the control plane. We've gotten to about 500 routes and 500 app instances, which is not much. But even then, at every level, we've found issues with our integration, either with our integration or in Pilot itself. And we've fixed some issues. Some of those issues have been fixed by the Istio community themselves. And that's one of the bigger things we're doing. We also are working on weighted routing or traffic management features, and we hope that by next month we'll actually have something to demo there. I have a bunch of resources here and I'll share it out so folks can go through it. But the Istio release is basically the Bosch release that we have, which has Copilot, Pilot, and the components that we are using. And you can kick the tires with it. So when we actually started this work, we had a set of near-term goals, and one of it was to use to be able to do the book info demo, which is a canonical example that the Istio community uses. So we've actually been able to set it up, except we don't have transparent TLS between apps in the service mesh, and we still don't have weighted routing. So I'll go through that in a second. Before I can just give you a brief background of what the book info demo looks like if you haven't seen it. So it's basically a bunch of microservices. The product page interacts with the reviews page and the details page to get information, and then there's a ratings app that actually sends back the ratings to the reviews app. And there are 3 versions of the reviews app. We only have one version currently in our demo that we've set up because we are not doing weighted routing yet. So this is basically a canonical example that the Istio community has been using. And I have this set up already. So if you look at, actually, my domains, I have 2 domains here. The istio.istio acceptance domain is what is mapped to the Envoy gateway in my environment. And I already have pushed the product rating reviews and details app. I've mapped the product page to the Istio domain, and I have like internal reviews, ratings, and detail apps mapped to the internal domain. I also have network policies set. So let's look at, I think it's, I also have network policies set for the product page to talk to details, the product page to talk to reviews, and the reviews to talk to ratings. And like I said, instead of having 3 versions of reviews, I only have 1 version of reviews set in my environment. And that basically, the way this pans out is that if I open the product page, I can see that there's a page which has book reviews and it reads from the ratings app. And we only have reviews v3, which basically shows red stars and not black stars and no stars. So you can see that this is pulling out the information from the reviews v3 application. So that's basically all I have in terms of a demo. I'm happy to take questions and try and answer them.
Okay, thank you, Shiva. We have a few minutes, so if you guys have questions.
That was great, Shiva. Thanks.
Yeah. So I have a question, I guess, to just prime the pump so people can ask some more questions. You say you don't have the weighted, weighting, but from a perspective of a end user, what besides like seeing the Istio woods and so on, is there a way for you to do kind of like blue-green yet, or kind of the kind of thing that you can do in Kubernetes where you specify, how much of the traffic goes here and there, or is it when you're going to have the weighted?
Yeah, I think so your question is there a way to do blue-green deploys right now? I also thought you were trying to ask me what the user experience might look like. Maybe
also,
that was
yeah, but maybe 2 separate questions, sorry.
Yeah. So there isn't a way to do that right now. We are hoping we'll get there by next month. We actually already, I think we have stories on our backlog that actually are to like implement that, but we've put in a lot of thought into it. We have a proposal that's out there for weighted routing and the user experience for that. So we have like thought through, I think one of the questions we were trying to deal with is how would a user interact with Istio under the hood, right? And for us, I think Istio is more of an implementation detail. And from our research, what we've seen is that for 80% of the users, I think like they would want to interact with a CF-like user experience. So it's either through the manifest or through the CF CLI that they would specify weights and be able to do specify weights to like how do they want to manage traffic, and that's the experience we are thinking about right now. But I think that's not something we've exposed as of now. We're hoping to do it, I think by like in a month's time we'll have something there to demo. But yeah, that's basically it. We also have a proposal. I can share that out. It's linked in the presentation I have, which talks about in detail about the CAPI considerations and like where we are with it, all the options. So we've considered the option of either percentages or numeric weights and what works. So yeah, I'm happy to share that out.
Cool. Thank you, Shubha. Any other questions? Anybody? Am I the only one that has questions? Okay, so I'll ask it. It's an easy one. I'm assuming the Bosch release for Istio supports the version 1.0, right? For Istio, or are you behind that?
No, I think we are on 1.0.
Okay, cool. Okay, I guess I don't see any question. Do we see anything on the chat? No. All right. So thank you.
Maybe one question, Max. So if I want to try this out, is it just basically deploying the Bosch release and setting up a separate route, or is there more magic to it? I'm guessing this is documented somewhere, so excuse me if that's a stupid question.
No, yeah, it is documented. It is, I think you have to set this up with the CF deployment. So I will share the link out, and I think that's all you have to do. It has all the details about how you can set it up. And you'll have to set up your load balancer with the domain.
Sure. Okay, cool.
I want to do a question now.
Yours?
So I heard I've heard some really great things about Istio. I've also heard a lot of people quite concerned about the performance at scale of Istio. And I wonder what we're doing in terms of like performance testing, or like what kind of scalability thoughts you've had about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I said, we've set up our framework to test, but we are doing it iteratively. So if we started with 50,000 routes, I mean, sure, everything is going to break, and not just in terms of like on the Istio side, but even with our integration. So we have a framework set, and we started with like 50 routes, 100 routes, 500 routes, and so on. And we obviously want to get to Cloud Foundry scale, but that seems a little farther off. The Istio, like I know IBM is actually doing a lot of work in scaling and performance testing.
I've heard IBM are great.
But like I said, I don't think a lot of folks are testing the control plane components. There is a lot of testing in the mixer and Envoy, like testing Envoy and mixer, but not a lot in the control plane components. And also our use case is a little different, right? We are creating like hundreds of virtual services, which are like those route rules that they used to call previously. And we are like updating them very frequently. So we actually found like that itself is not, very efficient in Istio. So I definitely think that is a risk. And we are keeping an eye on it. We both Shannon and I attend the performance and working group committee meetings, and I think that's a good place for us to start chiming in. We've also in the routing team experimented with actually having a pair that contributes to Istio and works on like upstream Istio components. That we've just not like come to scaling as our priority yet. But I think there will be a point where that will become a priority for sure.
Right. Cool. Right. I guess that's my kind of my worry is I think a lot of people get loads of value out of Istio, but it's normally because Kubernetes is not multi-tenant. They're normally in like relatively small clusters, and then you've got like the big multi-tenant Cloud Foundries. Like that's a whole different.
Yeah, I feel like we will, as we test iteratively, we are hoping to fix issues iteratively, but there is a I think bigger discussion around scaling.
All right, thank you, Shubha. And talking about Istio and scaling, we have on the call this time Nimesh, who's a manager for the open technology at IBM, and somebody in his team is working on that. Chris, I guess, Luciano. Anyways, Christopher channel. So maybe it's worth introducing you offline.
Yeah, so Chris is working on it, Max, quick point. And also Surya in IBM, he is doing some wonderful work on Istio scaling
Exactly.
and performance testing with some of the folks from the other Istio members. So I think they are in a process of finalizing the details for that performance report. And as soon as it is ready, we will share it with the community.
Yeah, we are actually already in touch with Surya, and we have regular meetings set up with him. So we meet with him like once, I think it's once a month right now.
Look at that. It's a love fest. All right, perfect. Excellent. Everybody knows each other. So cool. Thank you, Subha, again. I appreciate that. Okay, so the next talk, and I guess, Jules, you'll have 22 minutes. Nobody doesn't need an introduction. He has opinion about everything. I don't know how he does it, but talk to him.
And they're all right. Like what are the odds being right about everything? It's so weird.
I guess different to you ask, but but he's gonna share an important one with us, right? Irini, which is the backend for Cloud Foundry. So take it. You have to share your screen, Jules.
Yes. So actually, this is even better than just a single Jules presentation. This is a double Jules presentation. I'm gonna talk for just a minute or two, and then I'm gonna hand over to another Jules.
We are really amped
about a real actual demo. So you should all recognize how lucky you are to have a double Jules. This is rare. It's like a double rainbow. So the thing that we're going to show you, and I'm just going to talk for like a second just to set some context. But then we just want to show you some working stuff because it's quite cool. It's actually a tool for Kubernetes users. What we want is to provide a tool to Kubernetes operators and developers that gives them a rapid application development workflow for 12-factor apps. We're calling it Cloud Foundry. But of course, with a K. Of course, it's Cloud Foundry with a K. That's what we've invented. So the
name anything anymore.
It's not really called Cloud Foundry with a K. I just thought it was hilarious. I came up with that at the start of this call, and now part of me wants to make it actually the name of the project. Let's discuss that after, team. So the idea is, if you we've got this amazing workflow which we're already happy about with like Diego and Bosch and all this stuff, but you have the Kubernetes community kind of slowly kind of reinventing some of that stuff. But actually, it'd be really nice to offer them an easy way to get that CF user experience, to try it out, to see that workflow that I think most people on this call kind of love, right? And so that's what this does. This is a plugin basically for the cloud controller. So you've got all the same cloud controller APIs, everything works as normal, but it enables the scheduler bits to be pluggable, so that you can choose to use Kubernetes instead of Diego for actually scheduling your containers if you already have skills and stuff with Kubernetes, which means you get a kind of smaller amount of CF to manage, and you can maybe let someone else's let the scheduler bit be someone else's problem. Use scheduler as a service or whatever. So I'm gonna hand over to the demo, and we'll have hopefully a bit of time for questions.
Okay, and this is Julian. What's the last name? Is he?
This is also Jules, but so I happen to have a doctorate, so everyone calls me Dr. Jules. Jules Skupinjak, I think is the.
It's that. So you pronounce it Skupniak. It's a hard, but you can say Skupnijak or whatever.
Yeah,
just call me Jules. I think.
We on our team, I go by Dr. Jules, and Jules goes by Herr Jules, since he's based in Germany. So we'll go by Herr Jules and Dr. Jules for the purposes of this call, I think.
Okay, can you share your screen? I guess Jules number 2.
Of course, I can.
Okay.
Herr Jules, can't be Jules number 2. That's terrible.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Herr Jules is better. Okay, so I think I will just dive right into the demo, just because we don't have too much time, because there's a few things that I want to show. So I guess everybody is seeing my terminal now. And should have 4 paints. And I did some preparation for that. So just for our setup, we have a Bosch Light on soft layer, and we have also a Kubernetes cluster on soft layer. Our Irini component is currently running for development reasons on Kubernetes as a container, but they are connected with Cloud Foundry. And what I did here is watch on the kube get pods so you can see what's going on the cluster. The second app here is actually Irini. I called it Demo Irini. And the other one is one running app, one running CF app. On the right side, you see the stateful sets of Kubernetes because we deploy everything as stateful set. So in the lower left pane, I will perform a CF push and do the other demos. So I think we'll just start to push Dora. Let's say demo. And the staging is actually performed on Diego currently. We could also do it on with Irini, but we currently don't have the stream of the logs set up, so that's why we decided to, for now, to use the Diego staging. But the app is going to be deployed on Kubernetes, and you will see after staging that the app will actually appear on Kubernetes. So just give it another second till everything is staged. Awesome. So you already see that the container is getting created and it's already running. And so we last week passed the smoke tests actually, and I will just show the features that Irini is currently supporting, DCF features. So for example, we could say stop. So let's first show our apps. You should see also the demo app here, awesome. And we will now CF stop, for example, the demo app. And you should see that it's disappearing, right? It's terminating. And CF app should still show that it's there, but stopped, right? And we could also say CF start demo to start it again. Which will bring the app back up on Kubernetes. So it says here running, and of course the container is running again. And as we can do CF stop and CF start, CF restart also works. So I hope you believe me, so I don't need to do that now, which will basically stop the app and start it. So the next thing is, of course, we can CF scale apps. Demo, let's say 4 instances. So you should see the same app appearing like 4 times. So here it is. And of course, you can see it when you do a CF apps. You see the instance count, the correct instance count. And also we can scale it back to 1 app. So it's terminating the apps. It should also report the correct instance count. And of course, we can curl our app. CF. Just curl demo. Wait, I can just copy the link. And there we go. Hi, I'm Dora, which is awesome. And we are currently working on the Eratos integration, which is a log aggregator on Kubernetes. And we can also use the log cache to show the logs. And that should also work. So for example, if we use log cache tail, and then we need the app GUID, CF app demo GUID, and put it here. Let's do some more curls, because I'm on every curl I do some locks, and if we now lock cache tail, you see the locks, and if I curl again, you see that there should be a lock more, just that you believe me and I'm not lying. So here's the last lock. And you can also do it with CF tail, actually. So you can say CF tail demo, and it should also show you all the locks, which is also very nice. We are not 100% finished with that, but close to. And yeah, I think that was the demo for today. Yeah, I think if there are any questions, Dr. Jules will answer all your questions.
Very good.
I'm going to pre-answer one question because I know that someone will ask, because it's what I would ask. How many cats are passing? It's a little less than 50% of the cats passing at the moment, and we're cracking through the remaining ones. We think there's a pretty manageable amount of stuff to get to 100% of the core cats. And 100% of the core cats is the point where we'll start saying to people, hey, you might actually want to try this out. To be clear, that's the core cats and not things like container networking, which we're not going to do to begin with.
Yeah, here's the proof for the smoke tests. I actually wanted to show that the smoke tests are actually passing, and we can also run them while there are any questions. And there's also one other thing that I wanted to show is that for everybody who wants to try out Irini, we have a script, and that we are also continuously testing on our Irini release repository. And there are also all instructions how you can deploy it on your local machine using VBox, Bosch Lite, and Minikube. And it's actually just executing a script, which is here in the script folder. And it has all these steps. We try to make it really readable, so you can see what needs to be done to do that if you want to do it manually. And you can go to all the functions and try to do it yourself manually if you don't like to run the script. However, if you just want to easily deploy Irini, just use the script as documented on the README and try it out yourself on your local machine. Okay, that's about it.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start, I guess, some questions. First thing is thank you, Jules, and I guess Dr. Jules and Herr Jules.
You can call us double Jules if you like.
But the other thing I wanted to mention is that this is, I guess, a European effort between IBM and SAP, and obviously they would be happy to have your contribution if you're interested, so ping them. I believe Simon Moser is also on the call, so there's a kind of like a big team doing this. So let's open it for questions. We have 9 minutes. We don't have to use the whole 9 minutes, but you know, hopefully we have more questions. I have some questions, but I'll wait. Anybody?
Dr. Jules, it's Troy. What do you anticipate is going to be the trickiest thing coming up to pass all the cats?
I don't anticipate any problems. We actually have. I should dig it out. You can have a look at our tracker actually, and there's a list. We have a list of the stories that we need to do to complete cats. It's actually, although there's about 40 cats left, a lot of them are kind of the same. They're all like one test. So we have a list of the stories that are coming up, and we have them prioritized in order of the first ones are kind of like the things that you really would want. Let me see if I can find it. And then there's a few that are, I wouldn't say they're going to be problems. Nothing seems like it's going to be a huge problem that we can see. But there's a couple things where we're not actually on CF are kind of different. So an example of that is that there's a cat which asserts that if you don't have enough resources, you get an error message in the CLI saying resources insufficient resources. And that's just super hard to do in Kubernetes. Kubernetes doesn't really have the concept of not having enough resources. because it's kind of all asynchronous in Kubernetes. And it just kind of will retry until there are resources, if you see what I mean. So we probably won't be able to pass a test that says, say, insufficient resources. But I kind of feel like that's an operator concern, like in a Kubernetes environment, when CF sitting on top of Kubernetes, you've got an operator worrying about making sure that there are resources. And so if the error is just like timed out, which it will be in that case, you'll just get a timeout, it didn't come up in time, rather than like an explicit insufficient resources like Diego can tell you. I don't think that's a huge thing. So it's a couple things like that where I think we probably won't want to pass those cats. There's 2 or 3 cats which we think they're just representative of just a different way of working. And we won't.
Maybe Kubernetes should do that, but
maybe I think it's one of those fundamental differences in Kubernetes, like this kind of convergence of states rather than kind of imperativeness, where it might be relatively difficult. I mean, it's not impossible to implement it. You could implement it. You could loop over the nodes and see if they have enough resource and send the error message. It just would feel wrong. You see what I mean?
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, just a quick question. This is Julian Yortsoy. I think I might win the competition for the Julian with the least pronounceable last name, but I'm not.
It is quite a big competition here.
Yeah, Hair Jules is giving me a run for my money. I'm not really accustomed to it, but so in terms of like what happens in staging, I think you've answered this in a talk before, but I don't remember the answer, so I'll ask it again. Are you running is it a similar flow to Diego, where essentially you put out kind of a blank container and then pipe the app into it as a droplet and then start it up, or or are you actually building a container with the app fully baked into it?
We are. So all the staging side stuff still works with droplets, because that's the best way of keeping all the cloud controller APIs consistent. So you can still do things like roll back to a previous version of the droplets, which is one of the cloud controller features. So all of the staging stuff still works with droplets. But at runtime, we convert the droplet into an image. So everything that Kubernetes sees is an image. And it's an image that we construct based on the rootfs plus the droplets. We just basically build an image that describes the rootfs plus the droplet. And then we use that for all the Kubernetes side stuff. But it's using the droplet that CC thinks that app should have, and the rootfs that's the current deployed rootfs. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, if you see what I mean. And Brett is asking, does Stephen Levine's work to decouple build packs from CF? Yes, and not only that, but Hair Jules was mentioning that at the moment for the demo, we use Diego to do the staging, because we have nice log tailing on there at the moment. If you turn on staging in Irini, it actually uses Stephen's packs. So his repo with the decomposed build packs to do the staging. So we run that in a job inside Kubernetes and upload a droplet at the end to do staging.
Yeah, and not to be a party pooper, but this is pretty much exactly what this project called Knative. Dimitri and I have been working on this, and there's like a build that pretty much follows a similar process where it creates a container to do the build. And then
well, so build is slightly different. Build builds container images directly, and it also uses packs. We in our build aren't building an image. We're building a drop
that you use, right? You end up.
We do it the other way. So we build a droplet and then create an image dynamically. And the advantage of that is it means you get all the patching stuff for free. So when you deploy a new version of the rootfs with the patches in it, that's automatic. We now can just dynamically create a new image with the new rootfs and the droplet on top. Whereas if you do the build at staging time and put it into an image, you then just have a static, unpatchable black box image. So in order to maintain, and then you can't do the rollback stuff that CC has and the other features of CC. So that's why we kind of stuck with our staging. Although I think a lot of this works all quite nicely, right? Like we're using packs to generate that droplet. You can use packs in Knative. So however, you're now going to be able to use build packs to generate images in all sorts of contexts. And so it just depends what UX you want, right? Like, do you want?
Yeah, I'm not trying to compare the two. I mean, there'll be time for this, but I think I just wanted to mention that this kind of technology, I guess, is being used other places. So that's all.
Yeah. So I think it's a really good way of thinking about things, right? It's like we're using packs to generate a droplet, and then converting that to an image at runtime, and the Knative builds will build you an image directly.
Yeah, but you can have revisions on them and so on. So it's, you know, anyway. Let's see if there are other questions. I don't want to dominate. Any other questions, comments? Anybody? Okay, I think the last thing to mention is that I believe most of these guys will be in Basel. There is a talk, I think, or a couple talks between Simon and Jules, and both Jules, around Knative, and I believe there's even a panel where different folks are going to be there, like Bern and so on. So if you're interested in this work, especially if you're interested in trying it, using it, and hopefully helping them, come to Basel. More reason to register.
You said Knative, but I think you meant Irini, although I'm sure there'll also be panels about
Did I say Knative? All right, my bad. I meant Irini. This is not a Knative talk, so sorry about that. I meant Irini. I
think Knative is something people should also check out. It's very cool. But yeah, these are all different UXs that can now start to sit on top of Kubernetes, which I think is really
it's a slip of the tongue, I guess. Freudian slip, maybe. All right. If there's nothing else, we will call it a day. Thank you, Shuba, and thank you both Jules and the rest of the teams. I guess we'll talk again in September, and then after that in Basel. Take it easy. Cheers, bye.
Yeah.
All right. So you see how this happens, right? It's pretty.